Sophie Cunningham's cuddle demand to Caitlin Clark fuels Fever reunion buzz. Say what?
Sophie Cunningham just dropped a throwback video with Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin's three-word reply instantly sent the entire WNBA into a frenzy. Sophie fired back with a playful demand about cuddling and dinner, and fans ate it up. But beneath the jokes and viral laughs is a very real, very serious business decision the Indiana Fever front office can't avoid. With expansion drafts looming and free agency effectively frozen, what looks like harmless banter is actually tied to a situation that's far more complicated and far more important than most people realize.
Many Indiana Fever fans want nothing more than for their team to bring Sophie Cunningham back in free agency this winter, whenever the WNBA league office and its players agree to a new CBA. Of course, Cunningham isn't the only member of the Indiana 2025 team that fans are clamoring to bring back, as Kelsey Mitchell is just as beloved among the fan base. But while Mitchell might make more of an impact on the court compared to Cunningham, the latter's off-court charisma and star power have endeared her to the Fever fan base to an impressive degree, especially because
should the Indiana Fever protect Sophie Cunningham in the expansion draft, even if it means losing another valuable player? Drop your honest opinion below, because this situation is bigger than it looks. It all started with a simple throwback clip. Sophie Cunningham posted an old Instagram video of her and Caitlin Clark sharing a moment on the court last season. Nothing dramatic, just two teammates with obvious chemistry. Then Caitlin replied with 3 words that sent Fever fans into full meltdown mode. Time to run it back. That's it. 3 words. But in the current state of the WNBA, those words carry serious weight. With free agency frozen, CBA negotiations dragging on, and expansion drafts right around the corner, this wasn't just casual social media banter. Sophie's response made things even more interesting. Only if you cuddle and make me dinner twice a week. Clearly a joke. Clearly playful teammate energy. But the message underneath was loud and clear. Caitlin Clark wants Sophie Cunningham back in Indiana, and Sophie wants to be there. Before we even get into roster construction, though, we need to address the absolute circus that erupted in the comments. Someone genuinely asked whether Caitlin Clark had cheated on her boyfriend, Connor McCaffrey, because 2 teammates joked online. This is the exhausting reality of covering this league. 2 players can't have normal, playful banter without a segment of fans trying to manufacture drama that has nothing to do with basketball. For the record, Caitlin Clark is in a committed relationship, Sophie Cunningham is heterosexual, and they are friends and former teammates joking on Instagram. That's it. End of story. Let's move on.
she was also the only player in the entire league that we sat back and witnessed literally physically defend Caitlin Clark on the court. Just keeping it real. Watched a lot of other teammates just stand around while Sophie trying to scrap. And for some of us...
Now here's what actually matters. Sophie Cunningham was the second most searched female athlete in America in 2024, according to Google's year-end data. Not second in the WNBA, second among all female athletes nationwide. She has a podcast on The Volume with Colin Cowherd. She appears regularly on major media platforms. She brings visibility, personality, and a fan base that extends far beyond the court. So when Indiana looks ahead to the expansion draft, this isn't just a basketball decision. It's a business decision, a chemistry decision, and a culture decision. Protecting Sophie Cunningham might mean losing another valuable player, but not protecting her could mean losing far more than the box score shows.
Necessarily have to choose when it comes to getting Cunningham or Mitchell. Both players have expressed interest in returning. The Fever's front office will have enough money and flexibility to re-sign them, both if they so desire.
And here's the critical part that can't be ignored. Sophie Cunningham was only on the Fever for 1 season. Think about that for a second. 1 year in Indiana, and she became the second most searched female athlete in America. That doesn't happen by accident. And it's not just about her personality, her media presence, or her podcast. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. Playing alongside Clark puts players on a national and global platform almost instantly. Now Indiana is staring down a brutally complicated decision because of the expansion draft. With Portland and Toronto entering the league, the Fever are forced to protect their core from being picked apart. In most expansion drafts, teams can only protect 5 or 6 players total. That's it. No wiggle room. Every protected spot becomes a high-stakes choice, and every unprotected name is a risk. So the Fever front office isn't just deciding who fits on the court, they're deciding who fits the future of the franchise, who amplifies Caitlin Clark's impact, and who helps Indiana win and grow the brand at the same time. And here's the critical part that can't be ignored. Sophie Cunningham was only on the Fever for 1 season. Think about that for a second. 1 year in Indiana, and she became the second most searched female athlete in America. That doesn't happen by accident. And it's not just about her personality, her media presence, or her podcast. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. Playing alongside Clark puts players on a national and global platform almost instantly. Now Indiana is staring down a brutally complicated decision because of the expansion draft. With Portland and Toronto entering the league, the Fever are forced to protect their core from being picked apart. In most expansion drafts, teams can only protect 5 or 6 players total. That's it. No wiggle room. Every protected spot becomes a high-stakes choice, and every unprotected name is a risk. So the Fever front office isn't just deciding who fits on the court, they're deciding who fits the future of the franchise, who amplifies Caitlin Clark's impact, and who helps Indiana win and grow the brand at the same time. Now here's where the situation gets really complicated. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Nalissa Smith are essentially locks to be protected. That's 4 spots gone immediately. Which means Indiana is realistically looking at 1, maybe 2, protection slots for everyone else. And that's where things get messy fast. Because sitting right in the middle of this decision are Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham, both unrestricted free agents, and both of them have publicly said they want to return to Indiana. Here's the good news. The Fever don't have to choose between keeping Mitchell or Cunningham long-term. Indiana should have the cap space and flexibility to re-sign both players if they want to. But here's the catch, timing matters. If the Fever re-sign both before the expansion draft, they're forced to protect both, and that burns 2 of their extremely limited protection slots. So let's game this out. If Indiana decides they can't or won't use a protection slot on Sophie Cunningham, she becomes available in the expansion draft. And if that happens, she's gone. No debate. Portland or Toronto would snatch her up immediately. These teams are building franchises from scratch. They don't just need solid rotation players, they need faces, voices, and names that can sell tickets and generate attention right now. Sophie Cunningham checks every box. She's a capable on-court contributor, but more importantly, she brings legitimate star power and marketing value. If she's available, she's getting selected guaranteed. Possibly first round. Possibly first overall. Expansion teams need players who can walk into a new city and instantly matter. Players who can go on local radio, podcasts, TV hits, and actually draw an audience. Portland and Toronto are entering a league where Caitlin Clark just shattered attendance records and TV ratings. They're stepping into a WNBA landscape where star power matters more than it ever has. And Sophie Cunningham is exactly the kind of asset expansion teams covet. But there's another factor here, one you won't find in marketing reports or Google search data. Watch the tape. When Caitlin Clark got hit last season. When she got knocked down. When opponents started taking cheap shots at the league's biggest star. Who stepped up? It wasn't a group effort. It was Sophie Cunningham. She was the only Fever player consistently willing to get in someone's face and defend Clark in the moment, not just talk about it after the game. That kind of toughness, loyalty, and edge doesn't show up in the box score, but it absolutely matters. The Fever had players with better statistics than Cunningham last season, but they didn't have anyone else who brought that specific willingness to protect their star when things got physical. And Caitlin Clark is going to keep getting targeted. That's not speculation, that's reality. Having someone who's actually willing to step up when it gets ugly is a real asset. They're stuck with the kind of decision every front office hates, choosing between good options with no clean answer. They could re-sign both Mitchell and Cunningham, protect them both, and risk losing another valuable piece in the expansion draft. They could prioritize Mitchell, let Sophie test free agency, and hope she either comes back or avoids getting scooped up by Portland or Toronto. Or they could make the aggressive move, lock up Sophie specifically because of her off-court value and her chemistry with Caitlin Clark, even if that means making a painful decision elsewhere on the roster. What is clear is this. Caitlin Clark wants Sophie Cunningham back. The fan base wants Sophie back. And Sophie wants to be back. The only unanswered question is whether the front office values what she brings enough to make it happen. Because if they don't, if they leave her unprotected and she becomes a fan favorite in Portland or Toronto, that's not just a basketball loss. That's a long-term PR nightmare, especially when your franchise player publicly asked to run it back. Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark want to do it again. Now the Fever front office has to figure out how to make that happen without sacrificing the rest of the roster. This decision will define Indiana's offseason. If you want more WNBA roster breakdowns and free agency analysis, smash that like button and subscribe.